So there is a standoff and a crisis happening in Russia and Ukraine at the moment. And I want to go ahead and show you guys. There's a new poll that just came out. Actually, before I get to the poll, let me just tell you the backstory. You have the lowest number I read was 10,000 Russian troops on the Ukrainian border. Highest number I read was 100,000 on the border. I don't know how the range varies that much. It seems like it should be pretty easy to tell, is it 10,000 or 100,000? But either way, there's a standoff right now, and the fear is that Vladimir Putin is going to invade Ukraine and basically just take the areas that are ethnically Russian. And this would be, the reason why this is all coming to a head now is because the West has been open about the fact that they eventually want Ukraine to join NATO, and Russia views that as an act of aggression because NATO was not supposed to inch any closer towards Russia's border, and it has a number of times since the 1990s. So we're sort of stuck in this standoff now. We all remember Russia invaded Georgia in the Bush years. It invaded Crimea in 2014 when Obama was president, and now the fear is they're just going to take basically a large swath of eastern Ukraine. So the U.S. is currently engaged in diplomacy with Russia and negotiations. They're trying to work out some sort of a deal, like in terms of, hey, you guys don't invade, and we'll have a conversation about weapons and where they're placed, and if they can be pointed at you or not. And Russia's basically saying like, no, you have to have NATO basically pull out of. No more expansion for NATO, and also, withdraw some of the troops as they're currently situated in some of the other states. So there's a standoff going on right now. The media is talking about this issue nonstop. So it would be interesting to see a poll on, well, with the media talking about this nonstop, where are the American people at? Well, now we have the answer. Everybody take a look at this. This is from Data for Progress. Voters support the Biden administration striking a deal with Russia to avoid war over Ukraine. Here's how they word it. The United States and Russia have recently conducted talks about Russia's aggression towards Ukraine, but those talks have so far not succeeded in reducing tensions. Some argue that the United States must put all diplomatic options on the table and be prepared to make concessions to Russia in order to reduce tensions and avoid war. Others argue that meeting any of Russia's demands will allow their actions to go unchecked, and that only forceful tactics like sanctions and military action are appropriate. Based on what you know, would you support or oppose the Biden administration striking a diplomatic deal with Russia to avoid war over Ukraine? So here are the results. 58% of all likely voters support a deal. That's plus 29. Only 29% oppose a deal with Russia. Democrats, 71% support a deal, plus 54. Independents, 51% support a deal, plus 18, because only 33% oppose. And then among Republicans, 46% support a deal, and that's plus 6, because only 40% oppose a deal. So in other words, across the board, the American people are like, look, we gotta reach some sort of a deal. Now, my suspicion is, my guess is, because people know that Russia's a nuclear-armed state. We're nuclear armed, Russia's nuclear armed. Do we really want to get in some sort of a conflict, like actual hot war conflict with a nuclear armed power? That can devolve very, very quickly. And yes, the stakes are as high as you imagine they are. It's a terrifying prospect to go to war with Russia. So people across the board sort of realize we have to do something. We have to find a way to make peace, because now, here's the counter-argument. And obviously, I don't buy this counter-argument, but I'll give you the counter-argument. The counter-argument is, look, if you give an inch, they take a foot. If you give a foot, they take a mile. If you give a mile, they take 100 miles. So this is just like with, Hitler taking the Sudetenland and then Neville Chamberlain making a deal. Like, you could have, the Rhineland and the Sudetenland, but no further. And he comes back, Neville Chamberlain famously waving the piece of paper and saying, see, we made a deal. And then what happened? There was no appeasing Hitler because he was unappeasable, because he had global world domination aspirations. And so Neville Chamberlain, in retrospect, looked like a total idiot. And you had Winston Churchill, who originally was viewed as like this blowhard, who's a war hawk, who then he eventually looked like a genius because he was like, look, there's no appeasing this guy. So that's the counter argument. The counter argument is you can't give anything because then they're gonna not agree to the deal and go further. So, but the reason why I don't agree with that is very simple. Not everybody's Adolf Hitler. Not everybody has world, domination aspirations. I think Putin in his heart of hearts, did he despise the breakup of the Soviet Union and those post-Soviet buffer states? I think he did. I think he thought it was, he was in the KGB. He thought it was besmirching the Soviet Union or Russia and the Russian people. And so it was embarrassing on the global stage for that to happen. But Vladimir Putin also knows that to reconstitute the entire Soviet Union and get all those post-Soviet states back into Russia, it's not going to happen. He knows that. So even in his heart of hearts, if he wants to reconstitute the old Soviet Union, the political reality, I'm sure, has set in that you're not going to get back Belarus, for example. But I think the reason why Ukraine is a sticking point for him is because, say, similar to Crimea, it's ethnically Russian, and that population sort of views Russia more favorably and does not feel like the ethnic Ukrainians or like they're one with the ethnic Ukrainians. And look, keep it real, Ukraine was made in the 1990s, and it's sort of a fake state. The Western powers did the same thing there as the Western powers did in the Middle East, where they drew these fake borders. So now you have like Iraq is split between the Kurds and the Sunnis and the Shias, and it's ungovernable because these people, they don't agree and they don't feel like there's any national identity. I feel like Ukraine is a similar thing. The ethnic Ukrainians feel Ukrainian, but the ethnic Russians don't really feel that way. And Vladimir Putin views the encroachment of NATO further closer to his border as an act of aggression from the West. So I think a deal is possible, but that doesn't mean that Russia is good and they're blameless. And it doesn't mean the West is good or they're blameless. I think basically everybody thinks they're acting defensively as they're actually acting offensively. That's my general view of the situation. But cooler heads need to prevail because the stakes are really high. So there should be some sort of a deal made. There should be, some sort of a promise that, or actual treaty where NATO doesn't expand any further. And there are certain things that you do have as leverage over Russia if need be. The Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is currently approved, you could pull that away and have the U.S. give our natural gas to Germany, and you can subsidize it to the point where it's just as cheap as the Russian gas would have been. They're, arming Ukraine, even though that is viewed as a direct act of hostility towards Russia. If you agree to a deal where Ukraine is never part of NATO, then I wouldn't have a problem with arming Ukraine if Ukraine still feels like Russia is a threat and they can protect themselves if they're armed. So I do think weapons, arming is on the table. The Nord Stream 2 pipeline is on the table, but in terms of the demands of Russia, some of them are reasonable and I would meet those demands and have some sort of a peace deal and see what happens. But the American people clearly agree with me on this, and they don't buy the hyperbolic notion that Putin is just Hitler. And so we'll see what happens from here, but I really hope that the Biden administration is being reasonable about this. And I don't know if they are, because there's even talk now of some retaliation against North Korea for their recent missile test. It's like, okay, well, how many countries do you want to, raise tensions with and get us closer to a war with at the moment? You just want to have like 8 countries that are even bigger deals than like the war in Iraq that we're like this close to war with now? Is that what you want to do? It doesn't seem like a good idea to me. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.